I said, I don't know if you can see yourself, but I can see you and you look pretty good. I want you to look over there. Look at these sorry-ass, ugly-ass motherfuckers. Cowering behind their shields. Cowering behind those fences. Cowering behind their helmets, their guns, and most importantly, behind that badge. We are not just here because of how ugly these particular sheriffs are, although that would be reason enough. They are a perfect representative of America. Infested with white supremacist gangs who hunt and murder black and brown people just like America has been since day one. They oversee dungeons in this city, the LA County prisons, where they torture, beat, murder black and brown people, mentally ill people, where they oversee these torture chambers and dungeons. Just like America does, #1 in the world at mass incarceration, #1 at prisons and jails. These sheriffs, just like America has since day one, has always used violence, murder, and terror to put down and silence all the voices who have called for an end to the oppression and the white supremacy at the heart of America, just like these sheriffs have been doing for the last 50 plus years. But when I said that badge is something that is the ugliest thing about them, why do I say that? Because it represents the fact that they are not just some Wild West lone gunmen who are carrying out this terror and brutality. They are backed up and given this authority to carry out this violence by this whole damn system. Bottom to top, every court in the land has to bless the authority that is in the hands of the enforcers of the so-called laws of this land. And it's becoming a little bit popular today to point out that the police and the sheriffs came from slave patrols. And that's true. And it's good people are starting to talk about that. But I got to say, if you follow the logic, it seems kind of silly that you would talk about defunding and abolishing slave patrols without talking about how you're going to abolish slavery. It seemed kind of silly to talk about dismantling one part of this system without talking about getting rid of the whole system. The old form of chattel slavery in this country didn't end because the slave patrols couldn't get funding anymore. It took a civil war, an all-out fight. It was bloody. It happens to be the only war this country is ashamed of having fought because it ended slavery. The point is, sisters and brothers, it's not enough to let people point out partial truths. We have to follow the truth wherever it takes us. That's what Bob Avakian does. We follow Bob Avakian. Bob Avakian follows the truth wherever it takes you. Doesn't turn away from it. And if you say that they have an analog to the slave patrols, then the logical conclusion is that we cannot be playing around with half-stepping reforms that keep this system in place and going. We have to make a revolution. The RevComs issued a declaration and called to get organized now for this revolution, which says again and again and comes back to the basics. We need revolution, a real revolution. We cannot afford to waste these rare times and circumstances that could be ripened into a real chance to make revolution. We cannot afford to squander the rare and precious leadership we have for this revolution. We have to get busy. build the movement for revolution and the organized forces for revolution all over the country, and work together tirelessly for this revolution to actively prepare for the situation where this system can be brought down and something much better brought into being. Now you heard Michelle reading from Basics, where Bob Avakian talks about how all this serve and protect bullshit is really just about serving and protecting this system. And about how when we have power, we would just as soon as have our people's police take a bullet and die themselves than to carry out this kind of murder and terror against the masses of people. And I had thought about reading from the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic to elaborate on this. But it has to be said in a certain kind of way. That's the easy part. It's not that hard. It's not that we every day can go out into these streets and stand for the people and serve the people and fight for the people without gunning them down. It's not that hard. What is hard and why this system cannot do it is because they have no future for millions of people. And if they didn't have these sheriffs and these police, they would need to invent them, because they would need to have some kind of violent force to keep people living this way. And when we sweep this system aside and take the resources out of the hands of the capitalists and put the resources of society in the hands of society, we'll have a lot of use for everybody, because we have a world to change. We have an environment to save. We have future generations to look after and care for. But this system cannot usefully profit from exploiting people anymore, so it kills them off, warehouses them in prisons, and then goes around the world finding other desperate people it can use to make their wealth and their power. But this is why a revolution, nothing less, is needed, not only to go up against and defeat them, but establish that new society that can make all of this possible. And this is what we are preparing for. This is why we can go to people and say there is a way. There is a way to a future that is worth living and fighting for now. Revolution, nothing less. This is why we today could go out and show everyone how we are getting organized for this revolution now. This is why when you march through the streets, it is not just to put on a good protest and feel good, but it's to show everyone what it is that we are doing now to prepare to make this revolution. Because sisters and brothers, Bob Avakian has pointed out, there are two big weapons that they use to keep people down and keep people oppressed. You might think to yourself, yeah, I get all this tough shit about the sheriff, but why are we marching through the neighborhood where people live? Because this system has two weapons. They have all their violence, their murder, their prisons, but they also have the way they catch people up thinking just like this system. Living and dying for nothing but self, just like a capitalist, except you ain't got no capital. They have people in these streets fighting for markets on different corners, except it's illegal, their markets. And they don't go all around the world using millions of people. They just fight and kill each other on corners, and that suits this system just fine, so long as people are living and dying that way. So if we're going to make this revolution, we got to break down both of these weapons of this system's oppression. We're going to have to break people out of the ways of thinking that keep them going along with all this, keep them from getting into this revolution, keep them thinking there's no hope in going up against this powerful enemy. And then we're going to have to prepare people, as this declaration talks about, for the time when we can go all out and actually defeat and dismantle this system's institutions of violence. Because anything else will completely fail to deal with the problem. Anything else will just end up saying, yeah, it's wrong when they carry out one or another of their crimes, but they have the right to use violence to enforce this system whenever they want. And all we can do is question and challenge when they get a little out of control. The fact is, tens of millions of people, for a revolution to come about, have to understand these police, sheriffs, and the U.S. military have no right to use any violence whatsoever. They shouldn't even be allowed to direct traffic. They have no right to exist. They have no legitimate reason for being on this earth. And when tens of millions of people understand that, we're going to have to be organized to be able to do something about their ability to carry it out and defeat their capacity and dismantle their institutions so that we can sweep aside their system. And that is what we are getting ready for. And the times that we live in today are the kinds of times where such a fight can be won. It's not all the time that you get a shot at bringing down a powerful opponent. And when that opening comes along, once in a lifetime maybe, not only can we do something that really matters, our lives can finally count for the greatest thing. Imagine 100 years from now in the history books, when the children are learning about this old wicked land that was once called America, when people are learning about what sheriffs and police like this did all over this country, and they talk about the people who took history into their hands, rose up after too long of this and said no more and brought that system down. Imagine how much our lives will have meaning for those future generations. This is why we have to continue from here forward. What we did today was beautiful and powerful, and it's a launching pad to go even further. And we're going to have to keep on struggling with people because, look, I know some people have said, they say to us, well, yeah, I heard you've been telling me every day to come out June 12th. You've been telling me every day, will you be there? You've been telling me every day, we got two choices. I get it. But look, people keep telling us every day the same shit that this system has told them their whole lives. They keep opening their mouth and letting this system talk out of them. We're going to have to keep on setting them right. Not because we're mad at them, but because we know their potential. This is why Bob Avakian has never stopped struggling with people. He sees their potential, not just to fight, but to be emancipators of humanity. That's why we follow Bob Avakian, and everyone who wants to see an end to all oppression needs to follow Bob Avakian too. Not to get more likes on Facebook or Twitter, not to cultivate our brand, but because we want to get free, and Bob Avakian has developed a way out of this. And if anybody out there tells you, oh yeah, that sounds all nice, but he's an old white man, come on. You're down with getting free, you're down with ending all oppression, but you want to give up just because you ain't got it in you to follow a white man. What are you really about? Again, the problem ain't that Bob Avakian is a white man. The problem is that you are caught up in this way of thinking that has nothing to do with getting free. So if you want to get free, get down with Bob Avakian and get with the revolution and be part of getting organized now for this revolution. And one last thing, to everyone who has joined us along the way, to everyone who has been marching on a hot day, I don't think you understand how important what you have done here today is. Maybe you saw the eyes of the people who joined in with you, but I don't know if you saw in the corners of the windows people peeking outside their blinds, holding out their little cell phones. Because people here are suffocated by the lack of hope, and you brought some of that, a taste of that today. But we don't just want a taste, we want the whole world, not for ourselves, but to get everybody free. Revolution, nothing less. Revolution.